Hey there, it's Jordan with Status Coup. It is Thursday, April 13th, the year 2023 in the United Corporations of America. Big show, big show. Delighted to have Erin Brockovich. Honestly, we probably need a few days to go through every toxic disaster zone in this country. So we're only going to get through a few today. But I'm glad to have Erin back to discuss, unfortunately, the toxic plume over Indiana that is definitely going into Ohio as well. That is from a plastics recycling plant that has a massive fire that's now into day 3. Also, updates on East Palestine. For those of you that don't know, this month marks 9 years of the Flint water crisis, which, if you live in Flint, it's still very much a crisis, despite the media moving on from it. And whatever else, because Erin knows a whole lot more crises going on than I do. Please smash that like button, share this live stream. Before we bring Erin on, let's just give you a quick recap of what's going on in Indiana. This is about 2 minutes of this morning from CBS News describing the plastics fire, which was certainly avoidable.
Plumes of smoke have consumed the city of Richmond as the industrial fire enters its 3rd day. Public safety officials say their main concern is the hazardous, potentially carcinogenic particles spreading in the smoke.
If they're breathed in, can cause all kinds of respiratory problems, burning of the eyes, tightening of the chest. It could aggravate asthma.
Air quality concerns have forced firefighters to battle the flames from a distance and led to evacuation orders for as many as 2,000 people.
This is no joke. You know, chemicals like this and the burning of the plastic.
The business owner is responsible for this mess, responsible for the disaster, and responsible for putting everyone in danger.
Richmond's mayor placed blame squarely on the recycling facility. Documents from the city's Unsafe Building Commission reveal the business came under scrutiny in 2019, with one commissioner detailing boxes stacked all the way up to the ceiling, referring to some materials as a fire hazard and pointing to no sprinkler system. A Wayne County court later supported a cleanup order for the facility, calling the buildings in question a hazard to public health and dangerous. Richmond's fire chief on Wednesday appeared to suggest those conditions may have remained as his team worked to evacuate the scene and put out the flames.
Our access was very hampered by the rubbish and the piles of plastic that were surrounding the complex.
And in those documents from 2019, the business owner claimed that the building's fire suppression system was actually broken when the previous owner left. CBS News has reached out to that property owner, but so far have not had any luck with a response back.
Joining me now, the legendary environmental consumer advocate, Erin Brockovich, also the author of Superman's Not Coming, our national water crisis and what people can do about it. Erin, this is not the only plastics plant or toxic plant in America that probably has some problems within, might have some things in court that the residents right next door know nothing about. Your thoughts on, from what we're hearing, boxes stacked up, no sprinkler system, fire hazards there was declared years ago. Apparently, CNN reports that the city actually seized 2 of the 3 land parcels that this plant sits on after the owner failed to pay property taxes. Quote, "We have been through several steps since then to order this particular business owner to clean up this property because we were aware that what was operating there was a fire hazard," the mayor said. It's unclear at this time what steps the city took to remedy the site. So the city took ownership basically last year, but has not remedied and was basically depending on the delinquent tax property owner to clean it up.
So, hi, Jordan. It's nice to see you. Wow,
You
a lot
too.
of questions at once. Yeah, I was watching that video, and I think so many things go through my mind, and I get so frustrated. I can't imagine, for these communities that are in that very moment, the frustration they feel. But I find myself really trying for my own well-being not to get too angry. So across the
Well,
board.
you are wearing an AC/DC shirt underneath.
On the
So
highway to hell.
that's right.
On the highway to hell. Yes, I'm a rock and roller. I'm an old one from the past. AC/DC. I get tired of sounding like a broken record. We can go all the way back to 30 years ago when I started in Hinckley, all the way to here where we are today, which was a train derailment a couple months ago, now another fire. It's the same thing. And we continue to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, expecting a different result. We're either stupid or insane, one of the two, because we're not dealing with what we have to deal with. That is infrastructure, safety first, over profits, lack of regulations, lack of oversight, no enforcement. We can back this all the way up. You know, there was a great article, I actually pulled it up real quick, that was in the USA Today about rivers and railroads. When train derails, water is often nearby. Blame decisions made 150 years ago. To my point, these things 150 years ago, you know, follow the water, the solution to pollution is dilution, all the way back to where, you know, we began all of our industrialized nation. And we're still operating with those systems today. We're going to continue to see more things like this. We're not done yet until we back up and address the problem. The problem is kicking the can down the line for the sake of money first. Health and safety be damned. The future health and welfare of America's health be damned. We can't keep operating this way. And we're going to have to come in and have the conversation that politically nobody seems to want to have. You're either for regulations or you're not. You're either for oversight or you're not. Or you're either for I'd rather have profits and we're just going to make this our normal. This will be America. Floods, disasters, fires, explosions, train derailment. And our future is nothing but health and despair, bad health and despair.
You know, there's so many elements here, but something that comes to mind that ties East Palestine to Richmond. Okay, so in the case of East Palestine, Norfolk Southern, in my view, criminally poisoned this community, and then the EPA is leaving it to Norfolk Southern to test, to clean it up, to do all these things. And here you have this town, the property owner, as far back as 2019, there's all these infractions, but they have to go through court and all this rigmarole. And even after a court rules in favor of the town, they don't either they just choose not to, or the law doesn't allow them. They don't just seize it then. Why doesn't the state of Indiana step in at that point? Why is the federal EPA not stepping in? You have a lot of different types of plastic that clearly, if they are flammable, can cause a lot of havoc. Why were they relying on this person and giving this property owner so much room? We're talking 3 years to remedy it rather than just seizing it and you know, basically putting out the fire before it started.
Well, like you said, there's lots of elements to it. And I kind of visualize it as lots of layers to it. So at that local level, again, we're talking about Superman's not coming. Maybe they haven't gotten the message yet that Superman's not coming, that we just get comfortable or complacent, or something's going to get concealed because somebody's going to get in trouble. And we're going to think somebody is either not going to figure it out or somebody is going to figure it out. But we just kick that can and defer to somebody else. So whether we think that this is magically going to happen from the top, then you got to go down to the layer of the state. You got problems at the top. You got layers in the middle of the state that they all kick the can down the line for profitability, whatever they may be thinking. Somebody doesn't want to get in trouble. Fear, greed, profits, all of it come into play. And then that just trickles right down to a local situation like this, where at city council or in a litigation, somebody got through a loophole or somebody else thought, hey, somebody else is going to take care of it. And there's just has to be this moment for us as individuals that when we get that ball in our court, no, we're going to make the decision to run with it and see it through. I talk about this a lot. And, we talk about lack of regulations and lack of oversight, and that is lack of follow through. And I don't think that we're in a place anymore where we as individuals, and I talk about nothing changes until you do. Okay, so nobody else is going to do anything about this. I think it's a problem. I'm going to follow through on this issue to its end. And that's where we're at. Comfortability and complacency. Listen, I can say that because I've been comfortable and complacent in my life. But I think we have to shake ourselves out of this, because truly nobody's going to have our back on this. And it's so hard to go through all this media stuff. There's all these different stories out here. We used to have a 24-hour news cycle. Now it's every 24 seconds. I think it's dropped to 12.5 seconds. It's just a barrage. To get ourselves centered, and in a situation like in Indiana where these things were happening, somebody dropped the ball, somebody in city council or the law or a loophole. See, all of this goes to antiquated infrastructures. The entire system is failing, from infrastructure to outdated policies, outdated laws. All of that is going to have to be rebuilt and re-looked at as a new world, as a new society. We can't continue to operate with infrastructures and mindsets and ideas from 150 years ago. We're different. And I think that we have to be realistic about, oh my gosh, could we just even have a plan? I got an award at Harvard, and that's not neither here nor there. It was the School of Public Health. But what I'm trying to say is what stuck out with me in that event was, have a plan, be prepared. Have a plan, be prepared. We know we have infrastructure issues. We don't have any plan to roll it out on the long term, what we're going to deal with first. Nobody seems to be prepared. People are giving notices and warnings. But until we do that, we're just going to continue. It goes back to what I said. We're doing the same thing over and over and over again. I'm exhausted. I can't imagine how everybody else must feel. I'm 62 now. I started this as a young girl of turning 30 out in Hinckley, California. Every single thing, every time you and I get on here, every time, I write a book, Superman's Not Coming. Every time another case, every time another lawsuit, exact same thing, just different location, same scenario, passing the buck, kicking the can down the line with no plans and no preparation at all for when these things are going to happen. And we know they're going to happen. And it's frustrating. I watch people up on the Hill, and I'm like, you tell us, you're frustrated or you're disenfranchised or you're not getting along. Well, where do you think we're learning it from? Nothing gets done up there on that hill, whether the right or left, my way, the highway, your fault, your fault. We're getting nothing done. And so I think it's going to be up to us as people, as individuals, that we're just going to have to, unfortunately, do their job. And this is where I want people to get involved. And I want them to ask questions, or somebody at that city council dropped the ball. We'll peel back the layers. And like you said, there's many elements to it, but there's so many layers that we have to peel back to how we got here. But it has just been assault after assault after assault after assault on failed infrastructure, lack of maintenance, no safety. We know we have environmental issues. Look at the flooding happening today in Florida. And then we all are like, did you see that coming? Or we don't want to call it climate change. You don't have to call it anything. Don't label it anything. Use your eyes and your ears. We got a lot of changes happening in the environment. It is very obvious our system isn't working. It feels like it's collapsing. And how are we going to start being prepared and having some plans for what and how we're going to get through it, instead of just sitting here and letting it continue to happen? Why, after all these train derailments and even this fire, are we, or agencies, EPA, state EPA, state health departments, not coming back out? Okay, we got one situation like this. I've learned, Jordan, for every one person that reports, 100 don't. You got one train derailment, you're going to have more. You got another fire like you have in Indiana, you're going to have more. Are you not out there now going to look for what will be the next one? What one got by you? Where's your oversight, and implement it? So at least until we get this worked out, we could prevent another one. And that won't happen unless they realize this is going to happen again. And we better implement oversight, look at our regulations, and come back in and go check on all those codes that we let go or we turned our back to, and change it. And it will require work. But instead of just sitting here, just be prepared, right? At this point, what I've learned, I think you have too. Well, the next one's coming. Yep. So if you're just going to sit here and do nothing.
I want to ask specifically about this.
So I'm frustrated.
I don't know. I'm not a chemist, but I have eyes. I don't understand whether it's East Palestine or here, a half-mile evacuation zone, as if this plume is just stopping within a half mile. Colin, let's show some of these tweets. We have people saying they're smelling this. Let's start with, I think it was 3.5 miles away. You have Wild Day in Richmond, Indiana. The office I work at is downtown, 1.5 miles. My house is 3.5 miles. The sky looked fully black in the area, 4 to 5 today. Major black clouds still visible out of my back door at sundown. We have people, I think the next one was 10 miles away. 10 miles away. People finding debris in their yard. I didn't this evening, but we'll give it another look. Definitely a smell when I came home. This was somebody a little less than 20 miles away. Didn't get back home until sunset, and the smoke plume could still be seen, as could the smoke cloud overhead. We have people talking 30 miles away. They were seeing it, and in some cases smelling it. Now, you might see it, but not be a threat to public health. But I saw on Twitter people saying they were smelling things 30 miles away, yet there's only a half-mile evacuation zone. That doesn't make sense to me.
No, but they're once you're going to have a problem if you're going to call out a 30-mile evacuation zone. There will probably be mayhem and a even bigger problem. So they're trying to probably control it or minimize it the best they can. Yep. This is that gaslighting moment that you and I talk about. And when we watched that interview, I jumped kind of to infrastructure. And as we said, there's so many elements here. The one thing about that was, I believe it was the health department lady, where she actually said, yes, this can cause respiratories. Yes, this can cause eye problems. She listed and let you know, yes, you can. So for me, that's a signal. I'm not going to wait if I live 4 miles and I'm smelling it and having that effect, I'm not going to listen to just your half-mile evacuation. I'm getting out of the way. So I was a little taken back to actually see an official step up and say, yep, there's a lot of chemicals in there. Yeah. And
actually, let's play that, Colin. Do you have, can we move forward to her? Because it was interesting. A reporter asked her specifically, what about people outside, like 1.5 miles away? What do you say to them if they're smelling, their eyes, something like that? And you'll see what she said and get your response.
Sure. The health department's main concern at this point is the particulate matter, as Jason had talked about. These are very fine particles, and if they're breathed in, can cause all kinds of respiratory problems, burning of the eyes, tightening of the chest. It could aggravate asthma, it could cause bronchitis and all kinds of things. So we are stressing to the public to honor the evacuation zone. It's for your safety that the evacuation zone is there. And if you can see the smoke, you're in the smoke, get out of the smoke. If there's a reason that you need to go back to your home to get medication, you need to work with our officials on that site so we can safely escort you in and out of this evacuation zone. But any smoke, whether it has, benzene or any of the other compounds that Jason spoke about is dangerous because of the particulate matter that's in that. And breathing that in and of itself, just the particulate matter is dangerous for all people, but in particular, people with chronic illnesses, COPD, and the elderly. So we are concerned about that.
So, ma'am, at this point, is that neighborhood closed now? Then is that neighborhood? If I live in this neighborhood right where the fire is and smoke, is that shut down?
We still are maintaining a half-mile radius surrounding the fire and having the evacuation of that.
Should folks be wearing an N95? I know we dealt with this with COVID, right? But what is the best way to manage? People still have to go to work, have to do, right? Life goes on in Richmond. What is the best way to handle this?
Absolutely. Masks do filter out particulate matter. When we get into really fine particulate matter, N95s are the type of masks that would be the most protective. But again, I want to reiterate, we want people to stay out of the evacuation zone. Wearing an N95 mask will provide a certain amount of protection, but the best protection you're going to get is to stay out of the smoke.
I understand the evacuation area is a half mile, but if I'm a mile and a half, am I any safer? Am I much safer? Should I do anything different?
If you're seeing, smelling, eyes burning, experiencing any kind of difficulty in breathing, you need to evacuate that area, get out of that area.
So I liked about 80% of what she said, but I think at the end was kind of telling because the reporter asks, what about if, you're a mile and a half away and you're smelling or your eyes are burning? She's saying, yeah, if you're seeing, people are going to be seeing and smelling further than a half mile out. So I think it's what you said. They don't want to make it wider to not cause a panic, but also optically to minimize it a little bit.
She's saying it without saying it, which is going to call upon us to use our common sense. Okay, because she's not going to be superwoman. My common sense tells me I heard what she said. I didn't need to hear what she said. If I'm a person out there, I don't care if I'm 4 miles, 3 miles, or 5 miles. If I see the smoke and if I smell the smoke, I'm getting away from the smoke. She said it without saying it, without putting a mile radius on it, because you could smell that 8 miles away. So again, my reaction is here at home where I live in fire zone. If I see a fire and I smell it, I've got plans. I'm getting animals in the car. I'm double checking what I've got, and I'm getting ready to go. And so if you're in it and you see it and you smell it, and you are particularly one of those people that has asthma or a chronic condition, I have one, especially when chemicals mess with my eyes, which they did in Ohio. And I'm back to my little stents and my eye surgery, and my goblet cells have been destroyed again, and I'm back into a year-long eye problem. I'm getting out of the way. And oftentimes, we don't want to do that because there will always inevitably be somebody that says, oh, you're crazy. You're just listening to the media. And then we go through this whole self-check. Maybe I am overreacting. Forget, listen, common sense. I talk about this in the book. I talk about this all the time. People say, do the logical thing. If you follow your common sense, you'll take the logical next steps. Yeah, I give examples all the time. I was born and raised in Kansas. Okay. Observations are keen. The sky's turning green. I'm noticing the birds aren't chirping. The air pressure feels a little heavy, and the tornado sirens go off. I know it's coming, but I'm not going to call the Weather Channel to find out if it's an F3 or an F5. I don't care. I could be in danger, and I'm going to get out of the way. So she said it without saying it. If you can see the smoke and you can smell the smoke, get out of the smoke, especially for those that have asthma or underlying conditions.
Absolutely. I want to, I know you're trying to be Zen, so I apologize, but I have to play the EPA guy who, watching him, I don't know. I mean,
I'm trying to be Zen.
Well,
I'm Zen.
I didn't want to get you angry today, but this EPA clip, it's long. We won't play the whole thing, but it's almost like he's making it seem like there's only 2 or 3, compounds or toxins of concern here, when I have no idea how many chemicals are in that plume, because I don't even know. I don't think anyone knows what were all the things in that plant. Different types of plastic.
In Indiana or Ohio? You're talking
Indiana.
about Indiana. Okay.
Yeah. So let's play the EPA official here.
Jason Sewell with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Yesterday, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management called and asked for our assistance with monitoring air quality in the area. We arrived with contractors, and we've been collecting measurements in roving locations all over town, all overnight, and we have crews continuing to do so today. The contaminants we've been monitoring for include particulate matter in different sizes, as well as some specific toxic compounds. Fortunately, the toxic compounds that we're looking for, we're not seeing, but everyone needs to keep in mind that smoke is harmful, and we are seeing smoke in our particulate meters.
Yeah, question for you. Two questions for you. One, are people in Richmond safe? And two, for people in Northwest Ohio, winds are coming from the Southwest. For people in Ohio, do they need to be concerned about it?
So we understand there's smoke is going to be going into Ohio. We're close enough to the border. People in Ohio are going to be seeing it. We did collect some measurements in Ohio last night, and again, what we were finding was particulate matter, which is smoke. As far as the safety concerns, we collect our information and we provide it to the health agencies. And
so we're not seeing anything, but we're not going to tell you what we're even looking for. What is that? What's that about? He's saying we're not finding anything other than smoke. We're looking for a certain list of toxins, but I don't know what they're looking for. He doesn't say it. He later says it when a reporter asks, but I wanted to see what you thought of that.
Well, you can't find what you don't want to look for, right? It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, or they have an idea what chemicals could be in there, and they're specifically not looking for them. This is, my gosh, when we have a situation like this, how we even normalize, what the particular, a poison is a poison is a poison all day long. And we get into this, well, it's 10 parts per billion. That's the guideline or the maximum contaminant limit. And we're finding it at 9 parts per billion, but it can't hurt you. I had an argument. I don't even want to say it was an argument, just a conversation with a scientist a few years back on a water situation in Columbia, Missouri. It happened to be trihalomethanes. And he said to me, well, let's be honest, Erin, you don't have all the data to conclude that this chemical, in fact, causes these symptoms. You're right. I don't. But here's something that maybe you should think about. You don't have all the data either to conclude that it doesn't. So they're in a real precarious position here because they don't have all the data. So they can't say with certainty it is or isn't safe. And if they would be honest and more transparent, you can say to me, I don't have all the data. I'm more than happy to tell you, yep, that's the truth. I don't. But that doesn't mean that it isn't causing this. But they kind of move around in their transparency. They'd be better off saying, hell if I know.
Right.
I'm the EPA. Hell if I know. But if my kids were here, I'd be moving away from the smoke. I know it's not what you want to hear. But in an abundance of caution, since I don't know, since I'm guessing, which any one of us could do, this is where I ask people, you have to call upon your own set of common sense skills, your eyes, your ears. What are you thinking? What's going on in this gut of yours, which is your second brain? And we're constantly moving away from it because we hear from these agencies who we think have the answers, and they don't. And they would be better off saying, hell if I know. But I think in abundance of caution, I'd get out of here, but they can't do that.
Right. Absolutely.
Probably lose their job.
Let's play a little bit more of this fine EPA official.
Christine is going to speak next on what these instruments and readings mean for people.
But Mr.
Just
Sewell,
to be clear,
just to be clear, when you said the toxic compounds you were looking for were not found, does that mean that you widened the scope, or at this point are you saying that there were no toxins found?
So there will definitely be toxins in smoke.
Yeah.
We're measuring at the ground level. Of course, heat rises, and the smoke plume is not at ground level for most part, and dissipates as it goes downwind. But again, where we were not monitoring in the evacuation zone for the safety of my workers, but we were monitoring in the shelter-in-place areas and further areas, again, all the way up to New Paris, Ohio.
Mr.
kind of
Sewell, can you
toxins
tell
might
us
have you been looking for?
what chemicals are you looking for? When you talk about toxins, can
Sure.
you tell us what they are in basic language,
Yeah.
and what can those things
It doesn't
cause?
get basic, but
Well, but you do your
but
best.
we're using an instrument that looks for volatile organic compounds. That's a class of compounds that can include things like styrene, and styrene can be put off in the burning of plastic. It can include benzene, which can be included in burning of plastic. We were also using a benzene-specific instrument and didn't see benzene.
Are these cancer-causing toxins?
Many of them are.
Give me the in the spectrum, at the best and the worst. What can these based on the chemicals you're talking about? What is their danger zone?
So, questions on what the reading.
So continues to pass the buck to the health official. But all right, I'm looking for these two things. Yes, you have to look for styrene and benzene, but there could be a whole host of other things. And by the way, well, it could dissipate in the air. We're not seeing anything on the ground level. Well, like you said, in the case of East Palestine and elsewhere, just because you're not reading something now doesn't mean you're not going to read it tomorrow or, possibly in the next hour.
Well, how the wind's blowing, how the explosion occurred, where the particulate matters are. He said a lot in there, though. Again, you got to kind of peel back. Cancer. Yep. These have been studied and known to cause cancer. But we're going to get hung up on these arguments of 10 parts per billion versus 12 parts per billion, whatever their unit of measurement is, as to whether that can or can't hurt you. And it's just ridiculous. A poison is a poison all day long. I used to have conversations with Ed Masry all the time back in the Hinckley day about this. And we're going by OSHA standards where we set these limits, okay, based on generally a 35-year-old healthy white male on an 8-hour exposure. Well, okay, that may be good for him and what his tolerance level is. But that is not going to be the tolerance level of a 5-year-old with asthma. That is not going to be the tolerance level of a mother 9 months pregnant. It is not going to be the tolerance level of an elderly person with congestive heart failure. So I don't know how we can take any number based on a controlled study and think that that is going to be applicable to the community when the event occurs.
And also,
he admitted it's cancer. He also admitted that they didn't go into the bad area for the safety of their personnel. Smart move. What about the safety of the people there? Get them out.
I know that masks have become such a toxic trigger for some people, but they're literally standing there with the plume burning behind them. Nobody's wearing a mask. The only person I saw wear a mask was a reporter.
Yep.
I don't understand it. I didn't understand why the EPA chief in East Palestine wasn't wearing a mask. Again, it seems to me the playbook is calm. Let's minimize optics. I don't understand why they're not wearing any protective gear as the fire is still going and wind patterns are changing as we speak.
Jordan, that's an excellent point. And by the way, I blew up about this in East Palestine because I'd showed up 3 times. And the very first time I was there and I went down to do an interview, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Right behind us. They were aerating the water and the news crews are down there. I even told, I believe it was CNN, better be careful around here. And I was mad that I didn't know I was going down there. And now I'm the sitting duck. And so it's true. And it is for optics, whether I wasn't down there for optics. I came down and I'm like, what? Wait a minute. They weren't telling anybody they were aerating. So all of a sudden you see it. I'm like, that's aerating unit. What are you cleaning? So I got out of there as quick as I could. And every time I went back after that, each time it got a little worse. I'm like, wait a minute. What is that smell? Wait a minute. Oh my God, they're aerating again. Get out of here. And then when you go back in and check with other people, they're like, I noticed I had this tingling thing. My chest felt kind of, I'm like, what are we doing? Get out of here. And here it is after I'd been several times. I'm thinking to myself, and you know what, Jordan? Sometimes this stuff creeps up on you. It does. And I've had many exposures out in Hinckley, carbon disulfide in the big Unical case. So it can creep in. You're like, oh, what is this headache? I'm just tired. Why not? I just had a train derailment and those smells I have a headache. You don't really think much until it's a little persistent. And then you go to a doctor, which is exactly what I just did. And he's like, you've been exposed to something because you got all the burnt lacrimal glands and goblet cells fried off your eyes. I'm like, oh yeah, I did. And so that's an excellent point. And we just can't keep affording to do that. That's why I did pick up on what that EPA person said. Oh, and we found out in East Palestine. Now what? 10 people at CDC got sick. These things are real. And so it's this like gaslight thing that happens to all of us. And this is where I just almost feel desperate in a message to people. Please, when you're in one of these situations, be your eyes, your ears, know what you're experiencing. And if you think it's unsafe, I don't give a shit what your neighbor's telling you. Get to safety. And we don't listen to that because we're so worried about, am I going to create the wrong image? Am I going to create pandemonium? Because the other side's going to sit there and tell you, yeah, this stuff isn't going to hurt you. Listen to them talk out of both sides of their mouth. I'm going to go back to a tornado's coming. So when you're in a situation like this, what all of us have to look at is not good for you. Please, people, please get out of the.
I think another element, and I know you've come across this, and the people in East Palestine have dealt with it. Yeah, get out, but the state, the feds aren't providing the resources to get out.
Yeah.
I mean, there should be areas where people could go 5-10 miles away, put them up in hotels, create some form of temporary housing for people. We have people in East Palestine forced to go back because for whatever reason, their relationship with their family, they can't stay with them out of town, or they don't, Norfolk Southern's jerking them around and they can't get the reimbursements on time, et cetera, et cetera. Some people just don't really have anywhere to go and just, hey, they're not making it seem that bad, so we're going to stay or we're going to go back too soon. And this is a problem where the local, the state, and the federal government are not providing the necessary resources for people to temporarily relocate for their safety.
Because they failed. I talked about this morning with some of the clients out in Ohio, and not clients, people, community. They're not clients, they're people. They're still having problems. The kids are sick at school, and I'm having a conversation with them. You guys need to speak up. The media goes away unless you speak up and don't let us know, because come to me, tell me, and we'll get on here with Jordan. We'll push this information out. This is that moment where you go into city council, and we want to blame city council, but at the same time, they may not know what's going on because we're not showing up. But people don't want to talk about it. They're afraid they might lose their job. They're afraid they'll, create pandemonium. But this is a system failure. And we talked about this morning. Their only option is to either stay in a hotel that Norfolk will pay for it. They'll be a part of many litigations that are going on out there, and that could take plenty of time. They're in a cleanup, so you're just going to be a sitting duck, or you're going to have to find your way out, and it could be a financial disaster for people. And you would think that our agencies, which I guess we bought their illusion for many years, would in fact be there to save us. I don't get what's going on, though. When you have a hurricane or a disaster or tornadoes and disasters, FEMA gets there. It's obvious to them people don't have a place to live. You can see the house is destroyed, maybe because you can't see these chemicals and you can't really understand what they're going to do to you until the future, that we think maybe we don't need to move them to a safe place. But they should be. FEMA should be there from the get-go. From the get-go of this train derailment, there has been an absolute lack of oversight. Now, is that because they're close with Norfolk, who's going to run the show? Do they just not have any authority? Because we're not speaking out enough right now, and people coming forward and saying we're still sick, or the media's gone away, that we're not coming back and revisiting it? What is the message we're not getting? But in a disaster like that, absolutely. Who has authority, by the way? we would think it's going to be what? First, the state health department, the state EPA, the state governor. And then from there, we're going to need federal assistance and get to the federal EPA. But nobody's available. Why is that? Because you're letting the polluter, the one that committed the act, do what they want. How on earth did somebody miss that train derailment and not get down there? Why, Norfolk's hemming and hawing for a couple of days. What do we do? Please, somebody knew something. You're hiding something. You're hiding something.
It's a great segue. I want to move on to East Palestine. I don't know if you saw this. The national media didn't cover it, but we covered it. The EPA official, Mark Durno, for those of you watching in Flint, you know Mark Durno, might have some thoughts. But he said some things that made me think that what they've told us about this whole control burn, which has never happened in American history that I know of, to control burn a train, isn't exactly completely true. Colin, let's play. This is at a community meeting in East Palestine, I think 3 weeks ago. Credit to the EPA for showing up. Norfolk Southern backed out once again, said they would come and then backed out. But he's asked about, why did you allow them to blow up 5 cars, allegedly, from what they say, of vinyl chloride? Let's show this.
Who made that decision, if you know?
Well, we
why?
did approve that plan. So that's on us. We did approve that plan. The idea was it's twofold, right? Keep the tracks moving. Of course, that's the railroad's interest. But on the excavation side, I wouldn't want to have that entire area opened up at the same time. And that's just larger surface area for gases to come to the surface and blow downwind. I honestly, just thinking back on this, I would like.
Wrong clip. This is the right one.
Why did the EPA allow the burning of 4 additional cars when there was only issue with 1?
Yeah, so we did not authorize that. We are not, when we're in that phase of the emergency, we don't make that decision. We provide input to those decisions. And what we provided was an adequate, we helped develop the modeling for what the air was going to do when the plan was just to burn 1 car, right? Because that was the original plan. That night, Sunday night, the plan was vent and burn 1 car. On Monday, we learned that they made the decision to vent and burn 5 cars. We weren't part of that decision.
But you guys knew
before the vent and burn happened, we knew it was happening, so we enhanced our air monitoring equipment to be able to handle something larger.
Was there nobody who could say, nope, you're not going to burn 4 additional cars?
So
when that wasn't in the plan?
It was our understanding that there was a significant risk of explosion, and that was the rationale behind it. I've been on vent burns in the past, not 5 cars, but I have seen it done. I saw it done on a propane tank car before. That was pretty massive, and if that thing would have blown up, it would have taken lives.
Okay, but aren't the tankers for this designed to actually just split open rather than shrapnel?
So that's above my pay grade. I don't know the answer.
That's
So I was in the room, so I'll tell you what, from my perspective, what happened. The relief valves were gummed up. It was doing a process called polymerization, and I know that's probably not how you pronounce that word. It was going from a liquid to a solid. It was like a slime. They put an additive in there to keep it stable as they transfer it across.
Right.
When it wrecked, those cars were in the center of the heat, so that's where they got all the heat. So therefore, it burnt the additive out, is what we were told. And this is what we were told. We're not experts. We're not chemists. I'm the mayor. He's the fire chief. And there was a bunch of other people in the room. The people who actually owned the stuff were in the room. As there's rumors that they weren't. They were. They were consulted. They were in there.
They were there.
They were there.
That's something that they didn't. We didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't put it out, but it's town hall. We might as well get the truth out.
You know their name?
No, I don't know their name. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Number one,
I don't
we
even
showed
know
up
what
on
it's
Monday.
called.
We showed up on Monday. They made the decision. Well, who's they? Norfolk Southern. We find out the owner of the chemicals was in the room. Obviously, you might want to know what's going to happen with these chemicals when we blow them up. but this talk from the EPA, we provided input. We learned the plan was, what are you, the fucking EPA or the janitorial system? No offense to janitors. What is all this deference to these corporations when you're talking about, a chemical mushroom cloud? Why? I know this has frustrated you for 30 years, but why is the EPA allowing this to go forward? You can't have modeling for blowing up 5 cars of vinyl chloride, which, to be honest, I'm finding it hard to believe it was 5 cars of vinyl chloride. That's a whole nother story. Why would you blow up an additional 4 cars? Why was the plan until Monday morning 1 car only needed to be blown up? Now all of a sudden 4 cars? Something doesn't make sense here. And I think he had a Freudian slip that it wasn't a fire chief who made this decision. The company made the decision. The question is, why did they really make that decision?
I'm on an interview. Dwight, come back in a minute. Okay. I have a computer thing in there, and I'm like, Dwight, come back in just a second. There's a whole lot to unwrap there too, because I don't think the EPA is independent. I think the EPA is often in bed with these chemical lobbyists and these chemical companies, and that's who they answer to. They had a moment. Listen, I watched this thing unfold, and you could almost feel for those 3 days. So nobody was really talking about it before that huge explosion. What are they doing down there? They were thinking of an idea because they did something wrong. Was there a manifest? Were you transporting hazardous chemicals that weren't on a manifest that are more dangerous than you're going to let anybody know? What would be a better way to get rid of it than blow it up? And so the EPA walks into the fox and hen house, and the chickens are all gone, and they look at the fox. What happened to the chicken? And the fox is like, I don't know. Come on. And I just think it's an unfortunate situation again. There's a system failure. And we're just not going to read the handwriting on the wall. And this is where we, as people that are in these things, we have to become our own critical thinker. And I've told this community this, and over again. And Jordan, you know this in Flint and everywhere else that we gone. And usually it's moms that are pretty keen about this. I'm not buying this bullshit. I feel it right here. I'm not coming back. I'm going to have to figure something else out. But everybody else, is going to go do what they want. And our agencies just aren't there for us. They're there. I've seen it over and over again for 30 years. This agency runs ass backwards. We could back this all the way up. We could get into a whole Teflon, perfluorooctanoic, PFAS issue that's affecting this whole country. Well, go back decades ago where 3M notified EPA, there's going to be a problem. They got to stop this revolving door up there. Oh, you got a chemical coming in? Yeah. Let it into the system. We'll throw it into the water, only to find out 30 years later, oh, oops, we have a problem. We're doing it ass backwards, and we continue to do it. And until we start putting some oversight on top of good regulations that we have, or safe drinking water acts, and follow them in safety first, this is just going to continue to go on, because I don't know that the EPA is going to stop its revolving door of letting these chemicals come into the marketplace and into the environment anytime soon. We have to be the ones that are going to have to get smart. And we're more capable of doing that.
And by the way, in another clip, he said part of our decision-making for the excavation of the soil was to avoid lawsuits from Norfolk Southern.
Of course, but yet they're suing Norfolk Southern. Oh, right. You can sue. You don't want to be sued. And it's such a clusterfuck. I can't believe I even just said that. I don't know what else to say anymore. You said you weren't going to upset me today. This is just boggles my mind. It's so frustrating. It's so ridiculous. Oh my gosh, it's a comedy of errors, and it's not funny. But if you go back to this whole situation, oh, come on. They were hiding something. We just haven't found out yet what it was, but they were. And how unprepared for any kind of disaster the state was or this governor was when it happened is obvious. Well, we got an evacuation zone. Oh, it's a mile. But you have these people 4 and 5 miles. Again, you saw the smoke, you smell the smoke. It's making you sick, but no, it's not. So, okay, get out of here because we're going to blow it up. And then we decide it's safe because we're not going to really look for what we should be looking for. And they know what to look for. And then they bring you back. And then people are saying they're still sick. No, you're not sick. And then they're going to say the water's safe. Oh, no, they're going to tell you to drink bottled water. No, the water's not safe. Then I go out there. Obviously, the water's not safe, at least the tributary water. I'm not talking necessarily about the drinking water or aquifers. We don't know the answer to that yet. But you're aerating it. Why? Oh, it's polluted. Oh, that's why you're aerating. So now you're just throwing it back into the air. Oh, and then the EPA comes back out there, Mr. Reagan, and says the kids should stay away from the creek because we're throwing it out. Which is it? They're creating their own confusion. And I think that's part of their shell game. We're going to do all this over here so you don't see what we're doing over here. And it is cruel to do this to all of us as citizens and people in the disaster zones and taking advantage of that to cover up your own shit. I'm beyond frustrated. I don't even care anymore how crazy somebody may think I am or my emotions and passion about this. I've been doing it for 30 years. This has got to stop.
And, we have to also remember, we've spoken about it, the media abandonment is a big story here. They're focused on, as the Trump turns and Trump perp watch and all those things. I think they could walk and chew gum at the same time. I mean, Status Coup, I don't have the resources of CNN or any of these outlets, but we're just keeping in touch with residents in East Palestine, in Flint, now in Indiana. I mean, look at this. This is from 2 weeks ago. If you have the images of the rashes, Colin, residents are showing me images of their rashes. They're on city water, which was declared safe. That's somebody's fingers, hands. If you have the woman's back, that's her back, side of her boob. I got her permission to show. They're on city water. Another woman had rashes all over her face on city water, all over her legs. Other people have rashes, on their chest. This is coming from something, and I don't think it's the weather, yet we're just told, well, the testing's showing the water is fine. Well, what are they getting rashes from? It's really, really alarming. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about, I was shocked that they went ahead with an Easter egg hunt in a contaminated park, but they did that by claiming that, well, the EPA tested the soil and it came back safe. I just read the testing sheet. Colin, let's show the first paragraph of this testing sheet. This is from the Technical Assistance Service for Communities. It's labeled April 5th. The documents provide a TASC summary and review of the recent soil sampling at East Palestine City Park. The document is for East Palestine government officials to use in discussing the soil sampling results with community members. This document is funded by the US EPA's TASC program. The contents do not necessarily reflect the policies, actions, or positions of the EPA. So you're saying that this is the EPA's testing, but the EPA is saying what we're about to show you does not necessarily reflect our actions, policies, or positions. It's from a month ago. The testing was done over 2 days a month ago, but the Easter egg hunt was Easter, which is this month. So it was more than a month before. There's weather stuff that happens. There was only 14 samples taken. And then if you go lower in the document, they're telling you that the instruments they used, if you see the letter J next to data, it's a qualifier. It tells you the accuracy and provision of the value. When a result is qualified with the letter J, that means the result is outside the ability of the laboratory instrument to measure it with accuracy and precision. The number is still usable, but it needs to be evaluated cautiously as it is somewhat uncertain. I could read you the whole document. Basically, the EPA at the top says, yeah, you could kind of use our name, but we're not actually completely standing by this. And the actual soil data was littered by the letter J. which they're telling you means our instruments, not completely precise or accurate, I wouldn't bring my kid there. And it's just crazy to me. I understand the push in these communities to get back to normal. This affects business, etc. But I don't know. I just read it, and to me, that is not the best testing you could find. And we've had independent testers find higher levels of dioxins, among other contaminants, than the EPA is showing.
Correct. Well, it's just, we're watching, and I've said before in interviews, this debacle unfold in real time. Many situations, Flint was one of those things that was happening real time. These fires are, the train derailment is. But historically, going back, in my earlier days, we were coming into these communities that were sick and started to peel from there to realize, they've been covering up this contamination for 20 years, for 25 years, and latency periods have run. So it's a unique opportunity to watch it happening real time, and how that they can almost devise a plan to know what not to look for, what right equipment do I not bring. And by the way, if this is how they do, why do we even have an EPA? Honestly, because you were put in play to be the scientist and the toxicologist to understand these chemicals in the environment, in explosions, in fires, in water, in the soil, what it does to people. What? I don't think they do know what to do. So why do we have them? And that's a really scary thing to say. And so I just think that they're in a position where whoever they're answering to, which could be the polluter, I'm going to make sure I don't have the right gear, and I'm not going to give you the right answer because I really don't know what I'm looking for, because it could be one of 10,000 different chemicals. Yeah. And so again, back to us, where we have to be the ones to make that decision, whether I'm going to go or not go. And we're not always going to have all the answers, as we kind of said in the beginning of this, because circumstances change, things settle. We have latency periods, you have dose response ratios. All of those factors make a difference. And some of these chemicals, we may not know the real impact to the human health until we see it when it's, run its course and it's too late. And I just don't think we can continue to normalize our lack of oversight and our lack of dealing with our aged out infrastructures and policies and government and polluters being in the same bed together, and think that we're going to find our way more sustainable moving forward. And for a long, long time, I think it's been an illusion. And I think there could be a moment as more of these disasters happen, unfortunately for all of us. We could take a look at, let's just talk about the flooding going on in Florida here again, that what it is we're not wanting to look at, and how we're going to have to, as the people, we're going to have to push to make that to be looked at. And I don't know that made sense, but this isn't going to end anytime soon. But I think that there's a moment as we watch these things unfold live time, we might kind of go, wait a minute. I mean, there's a little bit of an illusion. I feel a Wizard of Oz moment where you just pull back the curtain and you realize there is no wizard. Half the time they don't even know what they're doing themselves in there, but pushing and pulling a bunch of hot levers.
Yep.
And so I'm super frustrated, and I'm extraordinarily passionate about this. I'm now a grandmother. I worry about the future of my grandchildren. I'm worried for all of us. I feel terrible for these communities. They're sitting ducks. And shame on any one of our agencies or those who stop fooling us that you're here to protect us. We're going to have to start doing that for ourselves. But these agencies are failing us. And like I said in the beginning, I'm going to be a broken record. But it's lots of elements, Jordan, and you got to peel back the layers of every single one of them. And like that USA article today, we're going to have to go back 150 years. When are you going to decide your old policies, your old leadership? And I don't mean old in a derogatory way. I'm 62 years old. I don't mean it that way. I should say, antiquated. infrastructures, ideas, policies, mindsets, laws that worked 150 years ago just simply will not apply and work today. And there's no way it gets us into a more sustainable future with a better environment. I don't think it's asking too much for us in the United States of America that we should expect clean water and clean air. And all of these agencies and all of these leaders that we vote in and that we believe who tell us you're here for us. I'm telling you, I just think they need to be honest. Give us an honest answer. Fuck if you know. Just say it.
Two quick questions because I know you got to get to the pups.
Yes, and you upset me today.
Flint next week is 9 years. People hear the word Flint crisis, they think it's in the past. It's not in the past. If you live in Flint, and some of you are watching right now from Flint, there's a lot of problems still with the water. I just want to read this statement. You know her well. Melissa sent me this a little bit earlier when I asked her the state of things. The city is court mandated to hit deadlines May 1st to survey thousands of properties they don't have records for to see if the pipe replacement and restoration work is finished. 9 years later, they have not fixed all the pipes. All excavations and pipe replacements must be finished by August 1st. It currently doesn't look great for the city to do the outreach and complete the work, and the state and federal government are silent. We would absolutely use their help to support and push the city to finish Flint's lead service line replacement program since we started all this infrastructure push. Currently, we do not have a director of public works, and our infrastructure is unstable with rupturing mains, fluctuating lead and bacteria levels, and need federal funding to tackle these main pipes as well. The corrosive water damaged the mains and interior plumbing as well. So we need the state to crack down and push the city to finish the service line and restoration work. And we need the federal government to focus on the rest of the infrastructure, the mains and the interior plumbing. We also need federal oversight over our water since we have no Department of Public Works. Otherwise, the Flint water crisis is never going to end. And on the water, yesterday, my water smelled like straight pond, fishy water. Today, it smells like all the chemicals, and I got a bloody nose in the shower again. Also, yesterday, a grandmother in Flint called me panicked because her son and his son, her grandbaby, both have high blood lead levels. If you think it's just Melissa, I still talk to residents, burning eyes in the shower, bloody noses, rashes, odorous water, 9 years later. I hate to be a broken record, but how does this happen in the wealthiest country on earth? Yes, it's an impoverished city. It's majority minority, but there's a lot of poor white people. But everybody just moves on and says, oh, the EPA says the lead levels are normal now. They're under the action level. Meanwhile, you got kids still having, mass problems from the cognitive issues, high rates of cancer now in Flint, increasing. Media headlines, oh, maybe it has to do with the water. It's just it really infuriates me because, like you have dealt with residents, I've sat on porches with kids who cannot read the alphabet anymore, cannot count to 10 anymore. I have talked to adults who 1 minute are, nice as apple pie and the next minute explode. And that's from the lead and the mood, how it affects your mood. I've talked to 30-somethings who have rare cancers with no family history. None of this is really being reported on anymore. Erin.
Yeah, I know, because I think as we just fade away, it fades from our memory and we don't come back to it. I think it's therefore really important, Jordan, even you, on the work that you do, these mothers, me, all of us, you're going to keep bringing it back, and keep bringing it back to attention. What's happening out there in Flint on these lead service lines is all about money. Because they'll cover their ass up into your driveway, and then you got to cover from there going in. When they're picking, just get in here and find the money. You got the money. We just had some big infrastructure bill. Tell me where that went, because that's another thing. We're just not being realistic about these infrastructure bills and this amount of money. You're not going to have a quick fix tomorrow. It's been 9 years and you're still not fixed. You think we're going to have all these lead service lines and these lead issues with 18,000 miles of lead pipe in this country fixed tomorrow? No. So I think that agencies, because again, for money, they don't want to come in and do the last part, or the state. It becomes a funding issue, becomes a money issue, and it becomes one that we think, we'll just normalize this, right? And I guess get used to drinking lead water. And let this country just slide into further despair, and we'll be none the wiser, and we'll move on. And I'm not sure that's going to happen, but I think it's going to be really important that we have to continue to rally, as exhausted as we are, because they've shown us nothing's going to change. But, you know, politics gets into it and the fights. And I am really tired of this right-left thing. I mean, people, let's get it together. This is our country. This is our land. This is our water, and we're in trouble. Now, damn it, let's get on the same page and roll our sleeves up. Let's get realistic about this, have a plan, and how we're going to start implementing this forward till completion, which could be 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years, let them know. But in the interim, what is it we do to get the basic thing that we need to survive? Water. That is safe.
What's your message? Because I know part of your job as an advocate is being a psychologist for upset, hopeless, desperate residents. You see it in Flint, East Palestine. Absolutely. They get despondent because nothing's happening, nothing's changing. What's your message to the people in East Palestine, Flint, now Richmond, so many other communities that, whether it's 2 days, 2 years, 15 years, I mean, people in Love Canal, for God's sake, still affected. Right. What's your message to get people to continue fighting and to continue organizing and not fighting each other? Because there's a lot of issues that happen in communities where they try and divide and conquer you. The corporations try that, and the government. What's your message to get people, you know, to continue the fight?
It's hard to do because I have to do it and remind myself of it every single day, which is what I'm going to do when I get off this interview with you, is just take a step outside for a moment, just to kind of breathe and reboot. Nothing gets done, you know, when we don't self-renew. And I think that's something critical. So when you're feeling that you're not going on, you can't handle it, you're going to blow up, you're going to explode, just take a break, step out, step back for a minute, and just kind of recenter your thoughts so we can come back to a common sense kind of approach. All right. So you know what? And by the way, if people aren't truthful with us, we're not going to get to that place. I want to hear the truth. You know, I live by, give me worst case scenario. Worst case scenario. See, I can plan from that, but I can't plan when you give me the best case scenario. The worst case scenario happens. So you're in a worst case scenario. What can you do until it's fixed? Obviously, you're going to have to rely on more bottled water. Again, getting back to local councils or at a state level, that this amount of the community members don't have water. Are you going to be able to truck in water for them? What state provisions do you have that even can help you to continue to have some source of clean water until those lead pipelines from the street to your home are replaced? Or get out there, and are we going to have to start doing GoFundMes just for our own properties to get people clean water in the absence of any agencies in their failures? So I think the most important thing to do is vet your information, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. It's perfectly okay to be upset, but don't stay there. Take a break, take a beat, take a moment. And this is where, honestly, I'll have a moment where I'm like, fuck it. And you just have to step back and step away to get your thoughts together on how you can see your way through something and what you will need to do that. You would have been able to do that if you'd been known about the worst case scenario first, but that never presents itself that way. And so it's, at some level, all of us are in the same boat here. We're seeing these disasters play themselves out everywhere. Breathe, reboot, ask questions, talk to people, have a plan, be prepared, get more bottled water until we're going to have some solution, because I don't think there will be one today. And we have got to stop expecting that. And this is where I've said our own comfortability or complacency, I think, could be even frustration at our own self that we bought the line, we bought the illusion. You know what? Okay, it happened. So, but here we are, and going forward, I don't want to stay in that angry space. I'm going to have to stay in a space where it is, and we are where we are. And how do I best protect my health, my safety, my welfare, and my family until this storm has passed. So disconnect to reconnect so you can make the appropriate arrangements, have the appropriate thoughts in place for you and your family until you can get that clean water. And it's really frustrating in Flint that 9 years on, this is still happening.
Absolutely.
And so
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
we
By
have
the
to
way,
disconnect to reconnect
there's
sometimes.
after you reconnect, I mentioned a potential toxic tour, Status Brockovich toxic tour, and my email box is flooded. So after you breathe and reconnect, we might have to talk about a summer tour. We could all learn a lot.
I absolutely, and I learned something every day, and I learned something every day from these communities. And that's something else I'll say before I go. Don't forget how resilient you really are. And when you can get back out there and disconnect to reconnect, you'll be reminded of that. And then you can go at it again the next day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody. If you need reading material, definitely get Erin's book, Superman is Not Coming, Our National Water Crisis and What People Could Do About It. I actually finished the book, and it was a great read. Not boring at all, not just chemistry and water. Really great human interest and fighting words from Erin. Thanks, and be well, Erin.
You too. I'll see you again, Jordan.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for the frustration. I'm going to go reboot.
Enjoy. Say hi to the dogs.
All right, I will.
That was Erin Brockovich, which, boy, does she get me revved up too. It's very rare. You know, a lot of, I've come across a lot of I would call her a bit of a celebrity. And a lot of them are just full of shit. And they do a lot when the camera's on, but when the camera's off, they don't do what you think they're doing. They're not fighting at all times. Erin spends a lot of time where she does not get notoriety or people don't know about, talking to community members, not just in East Palestine or Flint or the places we know about, but a lot of communities we don't know about and I don't know about that have had contamination of air, water, soil. I mean, we're even talking about indigenous reservations because we know Native American reservations, between the fracking and the mining, some of the highest cancer rates in America. This is somebody who has really dedicated her professional life to trying to be an advocate for people that are being poisoned. And I get a lot of, my fight to continue covering these stories that are not sexy stories and do not usually go viral, and the mainstream media do not cover. I mean, look at it. There's been a massive explosion in Indiana. There's still problems in East Palestine, and I barely see much of it in the national media. You see the national media cover the Indiana explosion right when it happens. You won't really see any follow-up on it. You saw the national media cover the East Palestine controlled burn for a week or so. Then they quickly moved on. That's how people get sick. That's how people get victimized, because essentially they feel like the rescue choppers have showed up. They feel like the rescue boat has showed up when all the media flood them and the media is covering it. But then the rescue boats turn around and they don't stick it out and they don't actually help anybody. So we are going to stay on these stories. For example, I'm trying to put together a trip to Flint as early as next week or the week after for the 9-year anniversary. I know it's not going to be hugely profitable for Status Coup. I know when I'm reporting in Flint, it's not going to blow up. We're not going to get, 5,000 live viewers. We're not going to get videos blowing up with hundreds of thousands of views. That's not what really sells on YouTube. What sells on YouTube and in general in media these days is sensationalism, is controversy, is people fighting with each other, is drama. That's what thrives, particularly on YouTube. That's what YouTube's algorithm pushes to people. This host fighting with this host, this controversial issue, a lot of right-wing bullshit. Sorry if you're a right-wing person, but, a lot of, attacking trans people, or this channel's attacking this one, or this host is attacking this one? Or did you see that drama between the Young Turks and meanwhile, this community is on fire. This one has people getting rashes all over the place. This one has nosebleeds everywhere. This one, people's eyes are burning, and none of it's being covered. Just bullshit and bloviation is being covered all over the internet and mainstream media. I just saw a segment about literally a body language expert analyzing Donald Trump's body language upon appearing in court. A body language expert analyzing Donald Trump's body language in appearing in court. Meanwhile, people in Flint, 9 years later, their eyes are burning in the shower. They're still getting rashes. People in East Palestine, I'm talking to people, not only the physical health, the mental health, depression, anxiety, because they've been abandoned, because some of them have been living in hotels for weeks and months, not nice hotels. They've had to take their kids out of school and do remote learning. Their kids are acting up because they want to go back home. But their home, when they go back home, still smells like a fucking diesel gas station. The bullshit that passes as news in this country, the bullshit and the unserious grifters that pass as serious people. I'm not saying we can't walk and chew gum at the same time and cover a lot of different things. We try to cover as much as possible. But I kind of believe that people's life and death is the most important news story out there. I kind of believe people's health is the most important news story out there. I kind of believe if your water is safe and quality is the most important news story out there. And remember, folks, water is life. It's not a cheesy tagline. You cannot live. Maybe you could go 4 or 5 days without water. That's it. You're going to die eventually without water. And you're going to slowly die if you're drinking contaminated water, or quickly die, depending on what contaminants are in that water. Air. I'm covering a story in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Literally, a paper mill has been pumping toxic gas into the mostly black part of Kalamazoo for over a decade. People are dying from cancers. A 17-year-old died of an extreme asthma attack, living in a toxic plume of gas that's being emitted by Graphic Packaging, a multi-billion-dollar company that's emitting toxic gas, which the state of Michigan knows about. And the state of Michigan, current Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who, by the way, the Democratic Party would love to make into a president one day. That's their now girl, much more than Vice President Kamala Harris. They love Gretchen Whitmer. Gretchen Whitmer's administration signed off on a $125 million bond deal for this toxic paper mill that they knew was poisoning Kalamazoo, poisoning a poor black part of Kalamazoo. By the way, it's now moving to the white part of town. So now the white folks are pissed off. So suddenly the media is covering it. See how that works? Media didn't cover it when it was affecting the poor black folks. Now it's affecting some suburbs. Now they're covering it. Gretchen Whitmer's administration signed off on a $125 million bond deal to help the company expand in Kalamazoo, even after they knew that this paper mill was was passing through all sorts of stop signs and was releasing toxic gas into the air. And I have the emails between the Michigan Environmental Department and residents where they're basically like, oh, well, I went and I didn't smell it. Meanwhile, the actual levels that are coming out of that plant are toxic. I mean, I could go down the list. People are mentioning the Colorado River. I've covered East Chicago, Indiana, which was poisoned and is a super fun site. I've covered North Carolina, which has PFAS, which are the forever chemicals in the water. PFAS is everywhere in this country. Those are the cancer-causing chemicals that are a byproduct through the manufacturing process of things like Teflon. I mean, we could do a whole marathon for probably weeks, and I could stay on the air and each hour do another contaminated area of America. America is in my opinion, one of the most beautiful countries in the world. I haven't traveled that much, but Parts of America are beautiful. It's also one of the most contaminated parts of this world. Why? Because during the industrial boom, there wasn't really any thought to, hey, how's all this buildup? How's that going to look in 30 years? By the way, we haven't even gotten to the toxic nuclear landfills where nuclear waste is stored and it's not sealed properly. Other landfills that have toxins coming out of it. I covered a story in the St. Louis area. I had to wear a mask. This was years ago before COVID because of how bad it smelled. I went to go interview residents. Their kids play out with masks in this community in the St. Louis area. But you turn on the news and it's all about Trump and, the latest mass shooting that nobody's doing anything about. They covered the mass shootings now. If you're lucky, they'll cover it for a day. Sometimes they'll only cover it for a few hours and then move on. Something's very, very wrong in this country. And it's almost like, as a journalist, I feel like I'm playing a game of whack-a-mole half the time because I'm only one person. We don't have the resources that CNN does. By the way, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. If you want to support our on-the-ground reporting, please sign up today. StatusCoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. What your membership does, what that $5 to $10 a month does, is it funds our on-the-ground reporting. We are, as far as I'm concerned, one of the only independent outlets, keyword independent outlets, that actually gets out of the studio and gets in the trenches. Louis, my colleague, Louis DeAngelis, has been in East Palestine twice so far. We're trying to get him back there by the end of the month. It costs money. Louis, a cameraman, flights, hotels, rent a car, food. I'm trying to get back to Flint and then go to Kalamazoo at the end of the month. We have some other places we want to send Louis, as well as myself, and Tina, who freelances for us. All of this costs money. Right now, we're trying to come up with the money to buy another live view. Live view is the broadcasting unit we use to go live when we're on the ground. We have one. It was very expensive, and it took us a while to afford it. It was about $25,000 to buy the live view. We're trying to buy another one because right now we're split up. I'm up in the New York area, and Colin is down in Texas. So if Colin and Louis go on the road, well, I have the live view with me. So I'm not mailing a $25,000 live view to Colin and Louis. It's insured, but we don't need to, go mailing that all over the country. We just will want to get another live view so that we could cover more things. That would allow me to cover things up here and possibly the next day them go somewhere and cover something. We need support. And it might not sound like a lot to you if you're not a member yet. Well, what is me signing up at $5 a month going to do with all these expenses? Every single paid member counts. Right now, we're close to about 2,000 paid members between our website, YouTube membership, Substack membership, the different buckets of people, Patreons. Right now, we're almost at 2,000 paid members. Full disclosure, I'm going to be going out to try and get more money, not from corporate fucks, but from progressive minded people that will want to support something like Status Coup with no strings attached, by the way. We're not taking money from anyone that, thinks they're going to have a say in how we cover things or what we cover. That's never going to change. You are our boss. The audience is our boss, not anyone that gives us money. But we want to get more funding. Well, a good way to get more funding is to go to people and say, hey, look, we already have this amount of money coming in every month from loyal supporters. So if you give us, hopefully 100,000, 200,000, we could hire this many people and grow it even bigger. So please, if it's within your means, sign up, StatusCoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. $5 a month is 16 cents a day. There's a lot of outlets out there that ask you to sign up as patrons and whatever. What exactly are they providing? They're all basically talking about the same things from a studio. Some of them I like. Some of them, when I shower, I turn it on. But we have a much higher financial bar than most other outlets because we actually go out there on the ground. I mean, actually, most months, our overhead, it ranges depending on how many trips we've taken, how long we're there, our overhead can sometimes goes over 15 grand a month. And that's including myself, Colin, Lewis, Ron, Tina, Kim, Zaina. I'm running out of everybody. And we have a lot of fixed costs too, including the live view, including other things. No, we're not becoming TYT. And by the way, if you notice, TYT doesn't go on the ground much since I've left. But no, we're no TYT. And they don't like to leave the studio these days and haven't really since I left. So listen, we want to cover as much of this as possible, not just the environmental corruption, not just the environmental pain. There's so many crises in this country, but we can't do it alone. We need an army of small dollar supporters. So again, if it's within your ability, please sign up, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. It makes a big difference, because the truth is, if we don't grow our membership, we could only send people as much money, send people out as much as we could afford it. And there has been times I've wanted to send somebody somewhere. It wouldn't be responsible financially based on our budget and what we're making. So that's my pitch. Consider signing up. Let me read the super chats. By the way, we will be live again in an hour with Ron and Tina at the normal time of 5 o'clock Eastern. So come back at 5 o'clock Eastern. They are going to be covering. There is something going on right now that isn't being called the Patriot Act. It might as well be another Patriot Act. And it's pretty fucking frightening. So they're going to be covering that. There's also updates in the expelled Tennessee Democrats that were reinstated. So they'll be covering that. I think they're covering a few other things, but I've been live, so I didn't see it. But Ron and Tina are always great together, so definitely come back to check out them. Colin, do you have all the super chats? Because it looks like we have more than I see here.
They should be all there starred.
All right, I only see 3. So.
There's 13 starred.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll bring them up on screen here.
Yeah, mine are only showing 3. All right. Momo, $11 super sticker. Thank you, Momo. Love your cat. KY Woman 1. Capitalism is the cause. $1.99. I'm with you. I would love to get rid of capitalism. Proxia, $10 super sticker. Thank you, Proxia. Das Post Flies. 5.99 euros. Is Erin still regarded as a domestic terrorist by Ohio agencies? Oh my God, I'm mad at myself. I forgot to ask her about that. Yes, the Ohio government had Erin Brockovich listed as a domestic terrorist for the crime of coming to East Palestine and calling out the EPA's corruption and the state of Ohio's corruption. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if she's still listed as a domestic terrorist. What else? Kentucky Woman 1, $1.99. Love you, Erin and Jordan. Keep fighting. Thank you. Appreciate it. Humorist, $20. How about instead of saying Jordan and Erin keep fighting, how about we all just stand behind them and Steve Grumbine and as a whole country come out and support them, because, that's really all they need. Listen, I don't want to be cheesy, but whatever you think of Bernie now, and I know some people aren't happy with him, it really is not me, us. We're never getting to the promised land just by fingers crossed one politician, or fingers crossed a few Congress people, or fingers crossed Erin Brockovich, or fingers crossed, a few journalists that we admire. It's not possible. We live in the United Corporations of America. There's way too many corrupt fucks. Our government has been purchased. It's going to take all of us. And that takes organizing. And I've said for years, we need local economic organizing. We can't just march anymore around the same blocks with the same signs with no threat behind it. I don't mean a physical threat. I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about we got to threaten the oligarchy and the United Corporations of America with our wallets. That means organizing, refusing to shop at the corrupt local bank that's fucking you, refusing to shop at the corrupt local supermarket that's exploiting workers and inflating prices. Organizing, and if it starts small, so be it. Getting people to use their dollars as their voices, because that's how you change things. That's when the oligarchy listens. Look at these strikes going on all over America right now. We just covered the other day. Go back and watch it. The live stream is up. A strike at Rutgers University in New Jersey. 9,000 workers are out on strike. Students were out with them. They've shut down pretty much the entire university. There's no classes right now because 9,000 faculty workers are out on strike. Look at the success the Amazon workers had in Staten Island, the success the Starbucks workers have had, Verizon workers, Nabisco, John Deere workers. If you organize, and you don't have to love everybody you're organizing with, you don't have to love everyone you're trying to unionize with, you don't have to love everyone you're going on strike with, you don't even have to agree. Some of you might be tree-hugging progressives and hippies, and some of you might be gun-toting, give me my Bible, abortion's a sin conservatives, okay? You don't need to get a beer after, but sometimes we do have some things that bring us together. Usually it's economics. Usually it's being against corruption. So that's what Erin means by stand up for yourself, speak up. I mean, I even see it now with these Palestine folks. If you're watching, very normal. I've seen it on Facebook groups and this and that. People bickering with each other and people getting fed up and people kind of dropping in and out of groups and people trying to organize, but this resident thinks this and this resident thinks that, or this one doesn't agree with this strategy and this one thinks this one is really in it for the cameras and the news headlines and not to help the people. And it just becomes this unproductive, ineffective fighting each other instead of fighting the people that poisoned you. You don't have to love everybody that you organize with, whether it's environmental, for healthcare, climate, whatever it is. But that's what the oligarchy wants. They want you fighting with each other rather than fighting them. The Democratic Party, it's a lot better for them if people on the left fight each other rather than them. That's the truth. Let's keep going. Humorous, $20. I'm sorry, folks, but you are not allowed to make money at the expense of other people's reality, life, happiness, or health. You're not allowed to do it. And if you think you can choose evil instead of good, I'm with you. But that kind of went out the window in the 1980s in America. I truly believe the whole Wall Street, Gordon Gekko, greed is good thing really got into the zeitgeist of America. And it became a free-for-all, you're on your own, survival of the fittest, good luck. We're not in this together anymore. I really think that switch was turned late 70s, early 1980s, Reagan, the union busting, greed is good, Wall Street. And we got to get back to we're in this together and collectivism, in my opinion. Humorous, another $5. You go, Erin, because I've been saying that for 30 years. You go, girl. That's all I got to say. Listen, I told my wife, I'm a little smitten. I love Erin Brockovich. I admire Erin Brockovich. I think she's a badass. For people that know me, I generally think most people are full of shit. Most politicians, most celebrities. I have a very, very wide bullshit detector. And from what I could tell, Erin Brockovich is the real deal and very genuine. So, Swirly Swirl, $10. We have an air quality alert in northern Indiana tomorrow. Thank you for covering Indiana news. We often get overlooked when we are one of the most polluted states of the union. Yes, and also one of the states with the most lax environmental regulations. I was shocked a couple years ago when I covered the lead problem in East Chicago, Indiana, which is about 40 minutes. What is it? East or west of Chicago? I think east. 40 minutes east of Chicago. I was stunned. I mean, you basically have no environmental regulations in Indiana. I guess I shouldn't have been shocked because, Mike Pence was governor and it's Republican. But yeah, a lot of places like Indiana, Ohio, a lot of the Midwest states get overlooked and unfortunately are some of the hot spots for this environmental contamination. What else? Swirly Swirl, $5. The East Palestine contaminated soil is being trucked to western central Indiana too. Yep. They are really trying to get that soil out of there and put it wherever the fuck they can that won't put up a fuss. For sure. Christina Suazo, $19.99. Thank you, Jordan, for everything you do. You're doing very important work that the average American desperately needs. Thank you. And I don't do it alone. We got Colin behind me and a really strong Not a big team, but a small team here. So thank you, Christina. Jan, 1999. For the toxic tour this summer, why isn't what is happening in East Palestine, Richmond, and Flint considered domestic terrorism since the media and government is doing nothing to help this people? You know how many times I've said these are terrorists that are poisoning the people? I'm with you. And by the way, what is all of this fucking fuss in the media about national security and Russia and, oh, we need to go to war with everyone against China and Russia for national security? Well, isn't it a threat to national security when American citizens are being poisoned by corporate America or their government? Is that not a threat? I'll try to speed through this because, poor Colin, I've gone way too long and he's got to do the live stream in less than an hour. JG, $5. This community is worth it. Thumbs up. Thank you. I appreciate it. JG, $5. Votes don't win elections. Donors do. Yeah, that's unfortunately why I call it the United Corporations of America. But also, we can't just focus on elections. A lot can get done outside of elections, which we are seeing with the strikes and the union organizing and the mutual aid and all of this great stuff. Foggy, $10 super sticker. Thank you. Thank you. By the way, I see we got a $10 tip on Rockfin from Dan. So thank you, Dan. Anything else? Swirly, $5. We deregulated wetland protections last year. Lots of water protectors fighting across the state. We're going to get this toxic tour done. My daughter is 5 months old, so I don't think I can go on the road now, but I think a toxic tour. Colin, what do you think? You think your wife will let you go for 3 weeks to a month?
I'll have to get back to you on that.
I think in minimum 3 weeks. We'll probably have to do multiple tours, so we'll keep it to like East Coast, Midwest for now, for the first toxic tour. But it can't be done in a week. It can't be done. Go on.
And that's all of the...
That's all. All right. Thank you so much for watching, folks. We'll be live again in 50 minutes with Tina and Ron. Colin, topics. We know they're covering the scary new Patriot Act. What else?
Also, the Justin Jones and Justin Pearson being reinstated over in Tennessee. If you guys saw that, or we had covered that before. It was a whole debacle. Too much to get into here. And also the defunding of libraries, and also if you guys saw the Pentagon leaker, this whole thing where leaked classified documents went through Discord servers and stuff like that. So we'll be talking about that and a couple other things in that sort of bubble.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for watching. I'll be back at it tomorrow. We'll see you here in less than an hour. Actually, I think what's going to happen is when we shut down this stream, it's going to immediately bring you to the next stream. So you could keep that tab open and hang out in the waiting room as you do your other stuff for the 5 o'clock Eastern stream. Thanks for watching, and we'll see